Hey guys, it's Mixed What's here. I'm CJ. I'm just doing a solo video. I'm here to read some Reddit horror stories. Today, I would like to present the Old Water House. I'll put their username up in the description. Um, let's get started into it. Over the hearth, there was an ancient crumbling water house where the entire estate's water system was managed. Believe me, we thought it was a miracle. How about a miracle how anything that old and Minky could keep and pump out any water. But it did. It was made with bricks and a black slate roof and iron doors. Although at the time of this incident, it was just the shadows of its former self. And I didn't have any doors. The windows were all smashed in by generations of kids throwing rocks and stones at them. It was there where my mother and her siblings were kids. They played over the hearth and told us all about it, that it spooked them and just as it does us. It was a really hot summer day. The older boys at the house were all just being little brats. So the boys said they would take us blackberry picking to keep us quiet. Mother gratefully agreed with them, as they were very mature for their age. They babysat us all the time. So we all know the rules of staying close to the boys and doing what they told us, and so, half an hour later, everyone had their fruit baskets and we were off. There were five of us. Younger kids. There were five of us younger kids. We were all excited, as blackberry picking was a great family favorite activity. Our Grand's blackberry pies were the best. Grand's house led directly onto the back of the hearth. There was a fence and a gap at the end. One of my older cousins passed me through to the other and then lifted my tiny wheelchair over the fence. The other kids were through in seconds and we were all going away. On our way to the destination, the older boys told us spooky stories as they always did. Half because they liked scaring us and half because we used to beg them to. There was nothing more terrifying than a story from my cousins H or B, and they were masters and so believable. We loved it. We all stopped talking when we came to the water house. Nobody ever dared to speak around or near the water house, not even the older boys. For something so mundane, it always looked so eerie. There was a second fence to get through before we reached our beloved blackberry field, but this time, as we squeezed through the gap of the fence, we were all more somber as we remembered the old wife's tale that we all knew about the water house. And the story goes, once, in the early 1960s, there was a gang of bank robbers. They were a local to the area and were really nasty pieces of work. Their expertise was terrorizing bank customers and staff alike before grabbing and shooting anything that moved. They did several jobs without getting caught, but they really messed up on a particular job. A sweet 19-year-old trainee bank clerk was shot dead, and 5 more people were seriously injured. One of the gang was also shot dead, along with the nastiest member of the gang being seriously wounded in the crossfire. It is said that the remaining gang members escaped with a few hundred and made their way over to the hearth and hid out in the water house. It was newish at the time and was a perfect hideaway for murderers. There was a lot of contention and stress between the remaining gang months before the bodies were found. No, sorry. Months later, the bodies of all 3 gang members were found, discovered rotting away in the water house. A few years after the weird stuff and creepy noises started occurring. Oh my goodness. A few years after the weird stuff and creepy noises started occurring near and around the water house, mysterious hairy figures were glimpsed moving stealthily among the pipes and wires. A dank, moldy, rotten smell, like aging river weeds, was always smelt around the area of the water house. And eerie walls and menacing murmurs could be heard day and night. In the late 70s, there was a spike of mysterious deaths of homeless people who would shelter in the hearth, in the heath. Sorry, the heath. I've been pronouncing that wrong this whole video. I'm sorry. The heath, not too far from the water house. There was nothing that ever linked the deaths to the water house, but the locals soon started giving the water house and surrounding area a wide berth because of the creepy history and dark reputation. That left the water house abandoned and in disrepair. That's what we knew of the Waterhouse's dark history. That is why we were so wary and anxious to get away from it as quickly as possible. When we were all through the gap in the fence, further away from the Waterhouse, us younger cousins built up enough courage to glance over at the building of ill repute before being rounded up by the older boys. A put me in a wheelchair again, and we set off to the blackberry field. We soon arrived at the field where some of the other local kids we knew had already gathered and spent a nice afternoon picnicking and eating juicy sweet blackberries. They were splashing in the river, and soon the sun was setting. It was time to go home. Our journey home was much like the one there. We were still bantering, laughing, and the older boys were still winding us up slightly. But, being as it was getting later, we were feeling wearier and slightly subdued. We reached the fence before the Waterhouse, and the air felt slightly too close, like a thunderstorm was brewing. You know that smell you can feel, how it can get more humid right before that storm. Yeah, they were getting that feeling. The youngest of the three older boys got me out of my wheelchair so that B could lift it over the fence. The other kids were already on the other side with H and B. As suddenly as this was happening, my brother-in-law. I'm sorry. There was this. The script's a little confusing here. Suddenly, my brother-in-law, in a low, guarded voice, said, "Something moved at the back of there, bruv." B just looked at him sideways. Out of the boys, A was the most likely to pull a stunt or wind up for everybody laughing. But A was straight-faced. A said, "I'm gonna have a look," passing me to B and squeezing past us all. "Wait up, A. We've got it. We've got to." Having put me in a wheelchair, B had moved forward towards his brother when we all heard A shriek out in horror and disgust, and the two boys moved back quickly. H, having already taken me out of my wheelchair again, had told everybody to run, and we did. B picking up my tiny wheelchair and folding it up while running. A grabbing the other two boys and following B, with B running with me in his hands. He held my little cousin's hands, and we ran. A kept saying, "Don't look back, don't look back." I did, but saw nothing. We didn't stop until we got to the fence, which led us back to the road on the estate, and we could actually see civilization again. We were all completely exhausted, especially the older boys. Before we slipped through the fence to the road, B, holding himself up by the railing, said, "What did you see, A?" Yellow eyes. Hairy face." All of a sudden, all of us started to panic and scream. H had to calm us all down. He said that we were safe and it would be alright, but we wanted to get as far away as possible. When we got home, we all looked bedraggled and slightly nervous. Mama and my auntie noticed this and asked the boys what was wrong. H just said that we got spooked by an old drunk man in the bushes looking for golf balls to sell, as that was quite commonplace all over the heath. Mama and my auntie just gave us kids a pep talk and hugged us. We never did tell Mama or my auntie about the yellow eyes and hairy face or what it actually was. But us kids won't go near the Waterhouse for a long time. Well, if my reading's a little unclear, I believe that some of her older cousins seen these yellow eyes or some creature in the Waterhouse, and that provoked them to all start running. They all got out of there as soon as possible. It appears the OP tried to look back but didn't see anything. But the way that their cousin described it, it must have been very scary. I believe that's all I've got for you today, guys. Like, subscribe, have a wonderful day, and leave a comment down below. Thank you.